Stunner, thanks for coming and checking out the podcast. Still brand new to this, still learning. But if you like it, then do the things like subscribe, comment, all that lovely stuff. You've seen me now do an interview, but another thing that I wanted to do, which is a little different than some podcasts, is I wanted to get people together that maybe are in a band together, maybe play the same instrument, maybe know each other somehow and somewhere, and have them interview each other, just so they can dig deeper into their own stories and dig deeper into their friends' stories. So this episode is going to be the first, but not the last, where two people that aren't me are going to interview each other on Stunner Stage. Mr. Tony Williams, who was in a band called Lord of All Desires, was also in a band called Pentagoria, was in the Chris Hockey Band, was in a band with me called Nopathy, and the big band that he'll talk about a lot today was Staija. He'll be talking to his fellow guitar player from Staija, Mr. Chris Valentino. Now, Chris started out playing in a band called Cold Storage, and then he went right into Staija. And now he's in a Perfect Circle tribute by the name of Stone and Echo. So today they'll talk about all the stories that they shared together, including some that include me. I was in the room, but I was quiet. I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, Mr. Tony Williams and Mr. Chris Valentino.
Well, Christoph, what was your first musical inspiration? How did music speak to you in the beginning?
I guess what started me in music was that, my older step siblings were, into hair metal and stuff at the time, but more so like the edgier things, like Metallica and Metal Church and things that were along those lines, and Iron Maiden and all that sort of stuff, So, I had some exposure to that, but it didn't really click with me, until I was about, let's say, roughly 13, and I started plinking around on my dad's guitar that he had sitting around the house. He had an old homemade Les Paul that somebody had put together that he bought somewhere, and so I was plinking around on that a little bit, and I started to get a little bit more interested in it. Didn't really know like what I was doing or what I liked or anything even, And then I remember being in a record store and I heard Ride the Lightning for the first time. And I was like, what's this? This is really cool. I really like this a lot. Like, what's that? I want some more of that,
Yeah.
So definitely, Metallica was the start of my interest in playing guitar and starting to learn some of those things and learn some of that material and really dig deep into it. But then, from there, I kind of went backwards in time, and found an appreciation for Pink Floyd and Hendrix and some of that sort of thing, of like learning to play through some of those type of guitar styles and whatnot. And I knew that I wanted to have some diversity in what I was playing and what I was learning. And that was kind of how I got started, in playing and being, I guess, becoming a musician at all. How about you?
And you probably, I'm not done with you yet. And you probably discovered that it kind of blossomed quickly, right? Like you were like kind of discovering your skills were developing and you're kind of getting the hang of this thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was before the birth of YouTube and things like that, where, you really had to like learn by ear and figure out how to play some of these things and, find those notes. And, but we had tablature books and things like that, where I would go and buy the tab books and I'd learn through the stuff and I'd get, excited of like, oh, okay, cool. Like I can find that little pattern, or like there's that one weird little thing he does. Oh, cool. Here it is, So yeah, it was exciting to, to make that progress, as I Didn't have any responsibilities outside of schoolwork, but to just sit in my bedroom and learn some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was exciting. It was really fun.
Yeah. My story kind of starts with just identifying with, or really just finding some of the stuff that, even like driving around with mom and listening to music, that music would, like, you're starting to like analyze it, like, oh, I didn't really know what harmony was, but I'm like, I think I think this note here kind of works without even really knowing what you're doing, but you're just like humming along, and your brain is starting to like get it in a way. And I remember listening to Prince and Earth, Wind and Fire and Bonnie Raitt and some of these artists in the '80s, and just really, you know, my mother was a big music fan, but all just really like kind of starting to get it, or just like understand that like there is this musical language, and your brain is kind of starting to to maybe understand little bits of it here and there. And I ended up getting a guitar for Christmas when I was 10 from Grandma Carol, and that was really the main starting point for me. Um, but but just starting to figure out the instrument, and like you were talking about, really kind of discovering these skills and your listening skills even while you have the instrument in your hand, and being able to replicate certain very easy patterns at the start, but you know being able to kind of make those transfers from hearing it to putting it on the guitar neck and making it make the same kind of sound, and those breakthroughs just being like magical in a way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's definitely a certain magic in that of like, it almost takes the magic away sometimes in a way too, because like once you hear this beautiful thing, this intricate thing or whatever, and then you figure out that, oh, it's just that. Oh, okay. So I guess what did you latch on to the most, like when you were kind of coming up and starting to analyze some of those things and figuring out like, oh, hey, there's more than one voice happening here, or things like
Boy, in that question, my brain went right to like the earlier Alice in Chains stuff, because there were so many vocal harmonies, and just even before I was understanding like intervals between notes or anything, just knowing that there are so many vocal options that I can hum along with on this. Um, and that's the case in a lot of stuff. If it's another thing that just popped to my mind is like when I first heard Silent Lucidity by Queensryche on the early version of 93X. Just being so into the production of that song, and like, oh my god, the strings, and the vocal melody, and that chorus part where it's
that.
all these voices, and
Tinglies on the
exactly, like
yeah,
it
yeah.
gives you the fun bumps, the goosebumps. But yeah, I think just starting to you know kind of break open the magic of understanding music, and just understanding like there is a harmony voice that can be sung here, even though I don't really know what the notes are or the intervals are, but your brain is just like, hey, there's a harmony there. And being a 10-year-old or 11-year-old kid and starting to understand that, I'm like, this is cool stuff. And it was like discovering this new language, and it really kind of is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes a little while to kind of translate that of like what you hear into the instrument that's in your hands, right? But then you start to get better and better at that. It gets more fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then you meet other folks that are doing the same thing. What brought you to your first band? Like, what was your first musical group?
It was this boy. I think I'm 14. No, 13. I was playing with Bill and
Ted.
Ted, and we had an excellent adventure. No, but Bill Lawrence from Eden Prairie, where I went to school, and we were just guitar buds and trying to figure out the Metallica songs and the Pantera songs. And um, around this time, I was really starting to understand rhythm and percussion, and I wanted to be that utility guy that could just kind of fill in wherever somebody might be needed in a band setting. But I had a long way to go to really get get anywhere decent. But I ended up starting to play some drums. I got some drums for birthday, I think, and um, first drum kit was it's kind of beat up Black Pearl export and came with a bunch of cymbals. It was a 7-piece kit, and the ride cymbal is the same ride cymbal that I still have, that heavy old ass Zildjian Earth Ride. And what I was told when we bought it was that it was played on by Vinnie Paul of Pantera at one point at some music festival. And for me, that was all I needed to hear. I'm like, cool. I'm gonna love this thing forever. But it's just got such a great ping to it, so I've hung on to it ever since.
Yeah, I think sounds awesome.
And I've never parted ways with it or wanted to. Even though it's heavier than hell, it's still just this, I don't know, relic, I think, from percussion past or something. But yeah, anyway, around that time, I started playing some drums, and instead of Bill and I playing guitars back and forth, I'm like, let's try to do more of a band thing. And so him and I, and then another guy from Eden Prairie named Ryan, we were starting to get together a little bit here and there and just play some of our favorite covers that were rock songs or metal songs that were just coming out around that time. That early Korn record really spoke to us, so we're trying to play some Korn songs, and we did a Pantera song off of the um, Far Beyond Driven record, "Use My Third Arm." So we didn't want to do one of the main covers that all the other bands were thinking about doing.
Deep cuts.
Deep cut. Yeah, but that one was so much fun to stumble through, and I still wasn't very good at drums at this point, but we did our best and we had fun with it. Um, yeah, a lot of fun memories attached to trying to figure out how to play and how to kind of congeal as a band, and how to how to practice together well and how to work together well, and even how to schedule our lives together well, which I don't know that I ever really figure out how to do that very well. But your turn, my friend. Your very first band setting.
Same thing. I started playing with some guys in high school that we picked apart. A few cover songs that we'd play some stuff off of White Zombies first, or well, Les Exorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1, I think they called that one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We picked apart a couple of songs on there, and we had actually written a couple of original songs that I have no idea what they sounded like, but I imagine they were probably not awesome. But
they're awesome at the time, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. We're just exploring that space and like starting to kind of learn how to create our own things. But I remember we had just a handful of songs put together, and we played a house party, a really, really fun, cool house party. And we covered "Sober" by Tool, and I sang and played played guitar for that song, and that was really my first like trial at trying to actually sing and play an instrument at the same time. And I remember I had this
tricky.
Yeah, right. Like now I'm using multiple parts of my brain to do this thing, and but it was fun. We were decently rehearsed. It was a good time. And I remember I had the jankiest gear. I had this like my monitor. I knew I had to have a monitor because I had to be able to hear myself. I remember I took a 6x9 speaker out of my old car and wired it up with a lamp cord to one of the output jacks from the PA, and I didn't have it in a box or anything. It was just sitting in front of me, like angled just right on on the bottom of the mic stand to face up at me so I could hear.
And it would wobble
Oh, yeah,
because it's oddly shaped, kind of like a football.
Yeah, but we did it. We pulled it off, you know, and it was a lot of fun. And, you know, like after we were done, you know, a lot of folks at the party had come up to us individually and like, you guys were really fun. That was great. It sounded really good, you know. And I thought, man, this is fun. We should do this more. You know?
Mm-hmm.
We should do this a little more. That was kind of, you know, like my first like group setting, you know, and continued on, you know, to play with those guys for a little while, you know, and just bang around on some songs in the garage, you know, and then we get kicked out of one of our garages and set up in one of our other, you know, parents' garages for a little while until we pissed off those neighbors enough to have to, you know, to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
But that actually formed what became the first band that I really had, original band anyway, that I'd really tried to actually do anything with which was called Cold Storage.
Right.
Kind of a thrashy sort of White Zombie, Pantera meets Nothing Face, sort of like there was a lot of kind of obscure influences in that project. But, you know, we got in on those Quest for Mayhem shows, you know, and things like that, and really started to like, you know, get out there and get a following. And kind of like Lord of All Desires too. Like there were some shows where we were a little too heavy for the rest of the lineup, you know?
Yep.
And then other shows where we weren't heavy enough, you know. So we were kind of trying to find that middle ground of like, what are we doing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But it was a fun ride for a few years on that one.
Yeah, fun group. I remember watching that band many times and just going, wow, they have their shit together and they're heavy as hell and good front man and great guitar tones, and that guy's got a huge ass drum kit.
He had a huge drum kit. It was crazy.
Yeah.
We were all annoyed at every show to have to move all that stuff, you know.
But that's part of the show, right? Is having a big kick-ass kit.
Mm-hmm.
As annoying as it is to maintain and move, put new heads on.
Yep, but it looks
expensive as hell.
Yeah, my God. So how did you end up going from your original, you know, garage band days into Lord of All Desires? What brought you to that project?
Yeah, there was one more kind of garage band that that I was kind of dabbling with in her early high school, and we would do rehearsals out in Waconia. So it was another kid from my school, and then his girlfriend would play bass. He played drums, and then she knew this gal out in Waconia for who wanted to be the singer of this group. But I don't know. I think we just weren't jiving right away. From I think maybe a little bit of a personality thing, and after I don't know 4 or 5 practices or rehearsals or whatever you want to call it, I'm like, I don't know that this is the right place that I want to be. But through them is how I met Chris from Norwood, and he is essentially the guy that once he and I met and befriended and started hanging out, it was like we both kind of were sharing this new discovery of the underground metal realm and kind of learning through one another like death metal and black metal, and you know we shared a love for the band Typo Negative, and that's kind of where we bonded, and then wanted to kind of you know explore our desires, I guess, to make you know dark ass music. And I don't think either of us knew where it was going to go, but I think we were just both like enamored by early Cradle of Filth and some of the Danzig stuff and Typo Negative and early Emperor and some of these things, and it all just kind of you know in the influence cauldron, and we started writing some of the Lord stuff. But I don't think we set out to be this like you know makeup wearing, bullet belt wearing black metal band. I just think we were creating dark music, and it just kind of was you know black metal generally speaking, but there was a lot of influence in there, little progressive stuff, because I also was getting into Dream Theater and some of the more progressive you know influences, and from that realm. But yeah, he played bass, and then he knew a guy named Dave who had just moved out there from Arizona, who was playing drums. And then Chris was going to Hennepin Tech and met Ryan, the keyboard player there. And then I just think through the metal scene, I forget exactly the connection there, but we somehow met Sean, who was the original singer of Lord. And then we started kind of conjuring up our black metal-ish, darkened, blackened metal realm.
And then you had moved to guitar at that point.
Yeah.
For
Yep.
that band. Right.
Yep. So guitar, and I was doing some backing vocals at the time. And then this was like '96 when things were starting to kind of come together, and then into early '97, and then through some of the metal connections like Don Decker and Earl Root, who ran Root Cellar, started to kind of figure out ways to get into the gigging scene, playing shows around town, getting our way into Ryan's, of course. I think our first like big show was opening for 6 Feet Under and Hatebreed at 7th Street, and that was early '97, I want to say. But that was a Decker connection. He's like, I think you guys would be a great fit on this bill. Um, in hindsight, it's like, I don't know if Lord is actually a good fit on this bill, but at the time it was just like, oh my God, we're playing with these bands and it's wild. And I'll never forget downstairs, the backstage area at 7th Street, Jamie Josta is like, he's got this giant pile of spit right under his mouth after his 35 or 40 minute Hatebreed set, and he was just harshing out his voice, I'm sure, and he just couldn't stop spitting, and he's like, I think I might puke, and he never did actually puke down there, but it was like this like really aggressive display. I'm like, are you okay, dude? Are you gonna make it? And then Nick Davis from 93X's metal shop was down there, and with Randall the Phone Bitch, and that was when I met those two guys for the first time, and they were downstairs to interview Jamie for the metal shop, and just all in one night. It was wildness. It was fun.
So I don't think Cold Storage played with any national bands. I think that wasn't until we ended up in Staija together that I actually had started to play with any like bigger bands that had been touring and things like that had a lot more experience and fan base like that.
So well, Lord fizzled out in the middle of 2001. I wanted to try something different, so I met Alex, who had grandiose ideas of what he wanted to do with the band. And I think he was initially talking to Nick Donner about being a part of that project. And he knew both Corey, and Corey knew Andy. So the early iteration of Staija was kind of in Alex's back pocket, and I was just kind of coming in as it was starting to fully form in early 2002. And then a couple of rehearsals. I think Calvin was a part of that for half a second. And then it wasn't Calvin's thing. So there was a guitar spot, obviously, that was open. And I remembered you from the Quest for Mayhem days and your kick-ass guitar action from the Storage of Coldness. and forget if I hit you up or if Alex did or a combination. We saw you at a show. I don't remember those circumstances. Maybe you do better than I do, but yeah, it was very, very early '02, and we talked to you about jumping on in, and you're like, sounds cool to me.
Yeah, I was a little apprehensive at first, because I had done the cold storage project, and it was fun, it was fulfilling, and it had run its course, and I kind of thought like, that's enough of that for a little while. I want to do something else, and not necessarily even musically, but just like I don't know what I need to do, but I need to change what I'm spending my time on. And I remember getting a phone call from Alex, that the singer who had been trying to piece together this group, and I was apprehensive. I remember telling him like, I really appreciate it, but like I don't know that I want to like be in a band right now and that sort of thing, right? And then he invited me down to a practice that you guys had been playing at the Sound Gallery in downtown Minneapolis there, and I remember coming to listen to the few songs that you guys had pieced together. Uh, and I was hooked. I was like, "This is really cool stuff. Like, this is I could see me really like, getting into adding to what they have going on here, and like exploring some of the space in this type of music to like throw another texture in it, like put another layer in there." And so I remember talking with Alex after that, uh, initial sort of reaction to what you guys had started, and I thought, yeah, let's just see what happens. Let's go for it.
Mm-hmm. And your first show was the 420 studio party, was it not?
Yes. Yep.
At the Karma building?
At the Karma building in Northeast Minneapolis. That was legendary. Legendary party. I was blown away.
Literally hundreds of people.
Yeah, we had 350 plus probably people throughout the evening, crammed into these skinny little hallways and in our tight little studio,
Yeah.
and we were banging it out. It was great, and everyone was loving it.
And we probably only had 5 songs at the time, right?
Mhm.
5, maybe 6. I don't even know if it was 6. That sounds like a lot. But yeah, a short little 23-minute set probably. But one of my memories from that night is watching Patrick Olson bouncing around in the studio, former 93X DJ guy, and he hosted the Loud and Local show for quite a few years. But yeah, bouncing around the studio, and my cousin Chris was there bouncing around too. A little mosh pit in there. It wasn't like chaotic, but yeah, a lot of fun memories from that night. I was wearing glasses and they broke that night, and I was sober cabbing my cousin home, and I remember driving home without any helpful eyewear, and we ended up getting pulled over, and I was fine for driving, but yeah. I'm like, my only problem right now, officer, is I can't really see that well because my glasses broke like an hour ago.
Man.
He breathalyzed me, but I was fine.
I remember too at the party, at the studio party that we played. I remember Jack Gilbert had come up to us, and he wanted to book us as a headliner already at Urban Wildlife when that place was still running. And I remember talking to him, and I was like, "Are you sure, man? Like we haven't done anything other than this yet. Like we don't have a following yet. We like probably pieced together enough songs for a set by then." And he was like, oh, "You guys are going to headline for this show." And I was like, "Sure, man. Like, all right, like let's do it." And I remember that we did, and it went off really well. Like it was super cool. He brought in, I can't even remember who the other bands were that played with us, for that first show, but it was great. There was at least a couple hundred people there, if I remember right. And he came up to me after we were done, and he's like, "See." I told you, man.
And you're like, what him say?
Yeah.
Eat big lumber.
And of course, to follow, playing that club, with uh, Trapped, of course, when that came around, and then Soil and Dope, and all of our music scene close friends too. Like the guys in B and
Black Flood
Diesel, Sound and Fury. Man, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of bands in our scene at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So but everyone had this collective like
Bleeding the Sick
energy together.
comes to mind.
Yep. Section 8. Yeah, there were just
Skywind,
so many. Mm-hmm.
Ginger Jake.
Yep, the list goes on and on and on. It was awesome, like we all went to each other's shows and we all, shared the majority of the same fan base that just grew and grew, and there, we really had a scene at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What a cool moment in time. We were so thankful to have those opportunities too, to play for that many people and to open for nationals and be able to grow that fan base and everything.
Yeah.
It was fun.
As you describe that makes me remember the Battle of the Bands at The Rock that year, 04. Or was it 03 technically, and we didn't collect our prize until 04?
Yeah, I think you're right. At The Rock in Maplewood.
Yeah. Now the Doghouse Bar and Grill.
Mm-hmm.
But literally 21 years ago, there was this Battle of the Bands in the wintertime. And I think the final night was us and Skywind and Ginger Jake. Does that sound right?
Yep. Yep, we were neck and neck with those guys. And if I recall, I think we had like 700 or 800 people packed into that club. And
Mm-hmm.
like it was probably over fire code. But we were going for it, all of us,
Yeah. And the opportunity, we didn't know what it was going to be, but the opportunity, the prize was to go to LA and open for some big band. And at the time, we didn't know who it was going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up being, voted the winners or whatever. And I think it was a few months before we actually knew what happened. I think ARM was behind it, ARM Entertainment, and they ended up booking us with King's X for 2 different shows. One in Santa Ana at what was then called the Galaxy Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the Conservatory now, if I remember right. Maybe I'm wrong or misremembering the new name. And then 2 nights later, we were at the Key Club again with King's X. And I don't know if it's funny, but it just makes me giggle that Neil Turbin is the original Anthrax singer, right? And his band was also on the shows, and so they were part of the bill. But I just remember him reacting to where we were in the lineup and not being super thrilled about where we were playing. Yeah. Yep.
And we're just some schmoes from Minneapolis. Sure.
Yep. Hey, we were told we were going to play with some killer bands, so here we are.
What an honor! What a cool thing that was, to get flown out to LA, to go out there and go play. It's with national bands and King's X. I mean, legends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but what a fun ride. On a list of so many amazing gigs that we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really fun out there. But like, what was your most fun show or couple of shows from Staija?
I gotta say, man, that whole month was off the chain, as the kids say, because I think that was very early April of 04 when we did that, and then we came back, and it was literally the next week we got that phone call from Wendy with 93X, who was like, "Hey, Marilyn Manson doesn't have any support, and they need a support band for both their shows, Fargo and in Minneapolis." And it was on a Wednesday when I got the call, and the shows were Friday and Saturday. And I'm like, I'm gonna just tell you we're gonna do it, even without calling my guys. And then the second we hung up, I called you and all the dudes to be like, I hope you can do this because I just agreed to it. But yeah, which reminds me of the story of heading to Fargo. to go be the one support band for Manson that night. I mean, we barely had, one or two national shows under our belt at that point. Other than playing with Head Charge once or twice, but yeah, and then it just was like nuts, the timing of it, from doing the two shows with King's X, and then almost immediately two more shows with Manson. But here we are, putting up, getting everything in our trailer, putting the trailer on the van, and busting ass up to Fargo to make sound check in time. And our van breaks down right around Fergus Falls, which is almost there, but not quite there. We're about 3/4 of the way to Fargo. And I had a contact in Fargo. And I'm like, dude, we are in a bind. We are trying to make this show. Can you help figure something out here? We need somebody to come grab us and then bring us up to Fargo so we can do this thing. I think it was like 70 miles away or something. And he ends up getting a guy from the radio station to drive down in their Oldsmobile Bravada, which is like a little Chevy Blazer type of SUV, smaller SUV. And but it does have a trailer hitch, so we put the trailer on the Oldsmobile, and four of us flop into the Oldsmobile, and then the other four of us are packed up on top of our gear in the trailer, not exactly riding legally, but we are riding to the show any way we can to get there to put on as good of a show as we can.
I remember bouncing around in that trailer, after we had been on the phone with Manson's stage manager telling us, "You get your asses here," and oh God, I remember bouncing around in the trailer with Alex and God, I forget, Lance, a guy that was sort of pseudo managing us for a little while, and we were just rattling around on top of the speaker cabinets and stuff and the drums, like,
yep.
Oh God, how long is it gonna be before we get up there? Like,
yeah, yep. Yeah, we probably should have left earlier, but we all had day jobs and we're trying to bust ass out of work and get all our gear together. And yeah, man. So we do get to the show as doors are opening. And of course, there the Manson crew is like, you're lucky we're gonna let you go on stage right now to set your gear up. And we did not get a sound check because the doors were opening. So it was hurry up, set your gear, line check, and go, because you're supposed to go in like 15 minutes. And we did. I think we only had to cut like one song, I think, from the set that we were planning to do. But yeah, we barely got there in time before we were going to be told not to have any part of the show.
We were lucky we brought an experienced sound guy with us to hurry up, line check, go. I'll never forget though, like that was the loudest my guitar's ever been, like the couple of chunks that I got, I was like, cool.
Yep.
I remember we were backstage, and the thing, they had, there was no promotion that showed that there was going to be any opener.
Yep.
And I had, this like, I had a wireless on, and right before we went on, I was doing this like spacey sort of creepy sort of sound, and I heard the crowd out there. I started to build, and I was like, oh shit, they think we're Marilyn Manson. Oh no! Like, what if we get out there and they hate it? Like I was definitely afraid and excited as hell at the same time. I was like, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be terrible. It's gonna be awesome. And
they may throw things at us.
You're right, exactly. Like, oh my God, I eat us alive. But first song in, like the first 10 seconds into that song, they were all into it, like they were there to see us, and it just was, it was right on, man. That was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. And the epilogue to the story is we go back to Fergus Falls to pick up our van the next morning, and then we bust ass down to the Orpheum where night number 2 with Manson was, and we were all virtually late to that one as well, with all the van stuff. So I remember coming in all flustered, and the promoter of the show is just like, hey, take a deep breath. You're here. Everything's fine. You ain't got to worry about a thing. your sound check might be a little bit short, but we'll get you on. We'll get you out there. But I'm like sweating and panting and running all over hell to find this guy to be like, are we good?
We can still play, right? We got all our shit here and our piece of crap van.
You won't believe what we've been through.
Right, exactly. My God.
Let me tell you the story. No, we don't have time for that.
Man, I think we had a van breakdown on more shows than not trying to get to it.
Was it 3 or 4 vans that we went through?
I don't know. We set one on fire by accident. One of them blew a rod through the oil pan and coated your car in oil behind us. I saw it in the rearview mirror happen. I was like, oh no. It was at least 3 vans, if not 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Favorite moment or favorite event from the Staija days?
There were so many to choose from, and what a cool thing. We had so many opportunities, to play with a lot of great bands. But playing with Marilyn Manson was definitely that was the biggest one. That was huge, biggest crowd, and definitely the most fun. But aside from that, I mean, a close second I would have to say was when we headlined for the Triple Xmas Ball at First Avenue. That was really fun, and I'm really proud of all the production that we put into that show. Like that, I think we did more visual things for that show than anything. We had on the big projection screen, we had an intro video that was really fun, and like inflatable snowmen that came up, as the intro was happening. And I remember Dane, our drummer, and I were, moving the snowmen from behind to the music and stuff to our funny, silly little intro that we did. We had Christmas trees on stage. We had real trees on stage. We had these creepy, curly sumac trees, that we brought with us. And I remember it was the third song in, we had these giant wrapped gifts on stage that during the third song, 2 scantily clad ladies in each gift box had busted out of the front of them, wearing not much more than a Santa Claus hat and tossing candy out to the crowd. That one was definitely a highlight gig for sure. That was a lot of fun. I was really proud of that night.
That one's on VHS or DVD somewhere.
Thank goodness it exists. It was before the time of everyone having a camera on their cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, a video camera in their pocket.
Man, there was such a collective of people that were, so driven, in the scene, and getting to become such good friends with so many bands. It's hard to kind of single out, some specific folks, because we'd in our younger days, we'd play the show and we'd go to the after party for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, until the sun came up a lot of the times, and we really, definitely like formed some really solid bonds, with so many people that we shared stages with, and I don't know. I think it was really cool to see that we could all sort of like collectively kind of admire each other's projects and what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? Is there anyone who kind of stood out, for you, that you were like, they are really onto something?
The first person that comes to mind is Earl Root. Not even necessarily from, because he obviously played some killer guitar and was in several bands, but I didn't necessarily know him as the guitar shredder. I knew him as the radio host and the record store guy and the record booth at festival guy, and just an absolute encyclopedia of knowledge about metal and music and 70s music and that kind of thing. And he really seemed like he knew what he was talking about and understood how to run a label and He just espoused wisdom, and I just would eat it up as a young impressionable lad, and I just could not get enough like chat time with him. And of course, he managed so many things, and so he'd give you 10 or 15 minutes and be like, "Oh, sorry, I gotta go," or he'd get a phone call and that would interrupt the conversation or whatever. But and I'd be like, "Damn it, we were just getting the good stuff." But yeah, I would say he's probably number one, just from uh, a wise elder of the scene angle, and I just loved talking to that guy.
Stand-up dude.
Yep. Lord was on the Root of All Evil records for the last couple of years, um, and it was such a great, partnership. I thought for small label and what we were looking for, and I mean, reviews of the record got into all these worldwide zines and all of that, and it was awesome. So I would say he's definitely number one on the list.
Yeah, man.
What a dude!
What a dude. Staija had its day, and it wrapped. What do I do now?
I shat in contemplation. Um, I don't know. I needed some time to not think about pushing the original music band thing for a good long while. I don't know where I wanted to be, but I knew that I didn't want to just jump into the next band, certainly right away. So, yep, it was start embracing playing other people's music for a bit in a fun way, these songs bring me to life kind of a way, and not think about spending money on recording or trying to court managers and flirt with radio people and any of that stuff. I just wanted to have wanted to go back to just the fun of music again, I think.
Yeah, man, it's hard work trying to push that original band thing and keep the fan base and keep it new and keep it, like do all the things that you need to do, to try to make that work. So going to play some covers, was makes sense, right? So Until the End was born, right, with bringing in the fabulous Mr. John Stun Magnuson, and playing what we wanted to play for fun,
Mm-hmm.
playing obscure stuff that, a lot of the people that, if they had come to see it at all, probably wouldn't even recognize what it was.
Yeah.
What did we play? We played obscure covers, from Lacuna Coil to Opeth to In Flames to
An Arcturus song, Norwegian black metal.
But acoustically.
Yeah, it was fun giving those songs kind of a different feel. I mean, how would you ever make a black metal song work in an acoustic setting? But I don't know, we found a way to give it a new, breathe some new life into it, and that was really fun. Especially where I think we both were after the wildness of the previous band, and just wanting to not give a shit as far as mega promotion and marketing and radio this and club manager that, and no, just let's book a show at some dive in St. Paul, and let's just have fun for a few nights.
Yeah, man, get back to the fun part again.
Yeah.
And how cool was it, that Stunner was, we knew him for so long, and we had gotten so close with him, and for him to come in and learn the bass parts and create some of his own bass lines to some of these songs that he never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a great sport about some of the weird curveballs that we threw. But he did it, and he killed it. It was great.
Yep. And as he'll remind us, he's not actually a bass player. He just plays one on TV.
A vocalist first and a bass player second. But man, it's been awesome to really see him, like, excel over the years and just become a better and better and better musician.
Mm-hmm.
And what fun, to get to have the three of us in a casual environment like that, where we didn't have to bust ass and go flyer and try to do all those other things. We just go play.
Yep.
Wherever it was.
From the end of 06 to probably 2009, we were doing the cover thing. We did incorporate some less metal-y stuff to be a little bit more appealing to some of the clubs around town, and like the Red Carpet in St. Cloud and those kinds of places. Try to appeal to a little bit more of maybe the dancing crowd, perhaps.
A little more palatable material.
Yeah. But eventually it was just like, this is just okay. And then we ended up starting to write our own stuff because we still had the metal bug in our souls, wanting to write riffs and melodic guitar harmonies.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sitting on some original riffage in the vault, to pull out and do something with it. Playing covers was fun. It was fine. It was cool to get out there and to be able to get on stage together, and hang out and have a good time, make a little cash,
make a couple of bucks.
Mm-hmm. But so then bringing in John Standish to play drums, we sort of kept that cover thing going for a while, and doing things like Tool and Alice in Chains and
Low Pro, Perfect Circle,
of course. And then morphing that into what became Nopathy.
Yep.
So, yeah. What about Nopathy?
Original metal. I was just describing it last night to a guy. What did Nopathy sound like? He asked. I'm like, oh, funny you ask that. It's a bit difficult to describe. It's really not that difficult, I suppose, but it's a mix of thrash and progressive metal, and just, pretty groovy, relatively straightforward, but it also had some dynamic ups and downs. The name, I always giggle at ourselves when we talk about where the name came from, because really it simply just was like, let's try to like do stuff kind of like Opeth, but not Opeth. So that's essentially where not Opeth, Nopathy came from.
I think we were chatting on Stun's bad side, his bad ear, and I think he heard the word Nopathy out of the air out of that, right? Yeah. Well, it was fun, to be able to kind of shift gears back into writing original material, but still with the mindset of like, kind of a casual approach to it. Like, we're not trying to get a record deal, we're not trying to go a tour, but like, let's write some stuff for the sake of writing some stuff to get together, hang out, do what we love, which is write some metal and have something to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, having opportunity to record some of that stuff and, create at least one fun music video. That's really cool.
Yeah. One official release, a 4-song EP in 2022. 3 of our own songs and a cover song.
It's awesome that we were able to sunset that project and still be, we'll always be family.
Mm-hmm. So essentially from early 02 to the end of 23, we've been essentially nonstop musicaling together.
Yeah, man.
And Stunner has been involved since late 06. So maybe not quite 20 years, but close. It is poetic, though, that the room that we were in for so long is completely gone. Like the second we moved out, the room imploded essentially.
Yeah, the walls came down and it became a gallery space, and now has a new life as another sort of form of venue for showcasing art, different media, now. But yeah, 20 some years in that building.
Yep.
So what now? What are you doing now?
I have been focusing on doing solo shows, mostly since I didn't mention much about doing the Chris Hockey Band, but I did that from uh, 2014 to 2019. And once I left that group, um, I wanted to focus on just doing my own events. Um, it was hard to do my own events while in that band. So once I left, it was like, okay, let's focus on this. The timing was a little bit funny with January of 2020 being like, okay, now I'm pushing into this thing, and then March of 2020 is when shit hit the fan in a lot of ways. But it was only a few months of non-gig time, which is kind of fun to look back on. And you know it felt like an eternity at the time, but in hindsight it was like 90 days. It really wasn't that all that bad. Plus I have a really uh, awkward typo negative piano cover that I recorded during quarantine that I made a video out of. So there's that one little production piece from quarantine. But anyway, yeah, just focusing on doing solo events. A lot of them are entertainer type shows where 3 or 4 hours a night and singing songs that people are, um, you know, hoping to sing along with. But I am starting to incorporate more original music shows when I can work that into the calendar. So travel has been a piece of that, but I don't know. I think the older I get, the less tolerant I am of of turbulence on airplanes. So so I don't know how thrilled I am to do a shit ton of air travel, um, but that's a little piece of it.
And you have some recordings of the solo material, so that gives you something, right, to put out into the world without necessarily having to put yourself out into the every other city.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's true. I wish I knew how to release music in this strange streaming world that we're in these days. If anybody out there knows how, send me a DM.
Slide into the DM, right?
Yep.
As the kids say.
Because I don't know that a lot of us know what we're doing when it comes to releasing our own music in this environment. But I think we try to do our best and try to not shit the bed, and you hope you get charted somehow or some way, or if that's even important to you as an artist, but you just want it to make an impact, and that other people have the opportunity to hear it, and not necessarily just your family or your close circle of friends because they love you, but you want, casual fans of the music that your sound is in, the genre that your sound is in, that they'll get a chance to stumble upon that one way or another, and hopefully make some more musical connections and create more opportunities for performance, and just enjoy the hell out of doing your stuff.
Sounds good, man. Well, I hope that it is always fun from these days forward.
Yeah. Yep. Fun's got to be part of it. And I think for me, I have a better, or maybe a little easier time of let's say a performance opportunity comes in by email, and I think I have a better or a little easier time identifying if it's a good fit for me, and fun is a part of that, you know. As a full timer, it's gotta do okay on the money side of things too. So I do have to pay attention to that piece of it. But yeah, it's got to be a good time, you know.
So you're going back to that, having to work for it again, but in a different sort of aspect these days, this version of it, right?
Yep. But it can be uh, you know, they're not mutually exclusive. It's not like fun is over here and money is over here. I think you can find ways to have that Venn diagram overlap as much as possible, where it makes sense in all of the ways that make you happy. Like, I don't know that I love playing until bar close anymore. So that's one thing that makes me happy, is if the opportunity doesn't have me playing until 1 a.m. or 1:30 or 2 a.m. or whatever it ends up being. So that's a little piece of the Venn diagram too. That's the circle down here.
Yeah.
Can I get out and get home at a reasonable hour? Sure. Cool. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about me. How about you, my friend? I know you're checking out another venture or two in music.
Yeah. So, I had a short stint as a fill-in with an industrial band called Gabriel and the Apocalypse, who has been around for 20 some years also, and had a few shows with them, and it was good fun. But primarily going into that, knowing that it's not something that I was going to be full time necessarily, and so that. Is set aside as they look for someone who's on a more permanent basis. I knew that I didn't want to go back into that same sort of format of like original music, really trying to get out there and do that work again. I think that's something that I had when I'd stepped out of Nopathy. I didn't want to go jump into to something like that right again, right away. So, but shortly after we had collectively the conversation to close the band Nopathy, I got a message from. It was a couple of months later after we had agreed to to close out that project. I got a message from Salvador, an amazing drummer who plays in a Tool tribute band in town, and they had been thinking of creating a tribute to A Perfect Circle. And so he messaged me to see if I would be interested, in such a project. And as soon as A Perfect Circle came out, they were a band that they had a special place in my heart. Like they're one of my top three favorite bands ever, like for eternity. I absolutely love what they have created.
Mm-hmm.
And so this opportunity to go and play in a tribute to that band really made sense, and it was something where they're already established with their Tool tribute band. The Perfect Circle project, it's called Stone and Echo, and that's an add-on, to some 10,000 Days shows, 10,000 Days being their Tool tribute.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's already sort of that built-in crowd, that they've accumulated over the last, I don't know, they've been around for quite a while now too. And so, I could step into that in a way where I'm playing the guitar parts of some of the most influential music, that I've ever heard and incorporated into my own style and sound and everything. So, being able to do that and play that material and not necessarily have to come up with my own ideas and write my own music and that sort of thing and go through the work of all of that just really has been the right place for me at this point in time. So we've gigged a few times so far, and there may be a point where it might be its own freestanding project. At some point. Obviously, the popularity of that band is much less than Tool, but still, there's enough fan base out there and enough interest in it that it may end up standing on its own before too long. But it's just been really fun, to be able to learn all those parts and like as you said earlier, kind of translate, from what what you hear in your head and your ears to the instrument that's in front of you. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I know every note of this stuff. I know every single little nuance of Billy's guitar playing, but now translating that into learning it on that fretboard and bringing that from my brain to my hands has been a really, really fun project. It's been very rewarding. I look forward to doing more of it.
Well, Chris, this was a pleasure.
Likewise, man.
Nice plopping down and chatting with you.
Indeed.
Going over our shared histories and now our unshared futures.
Well, unshared, I don't know. I guess, we're always going to hang out.
Yeah, I just meant in a musical way.
Who knows? I have a feeling we'll probably come full circle back to writing something together soon.
Will it be a perfect full circle?
Nice. I'll try not to be a tool about it.
Too late. Tool late.